Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another episode of my director collections, where I go through the physical media I have of some of my favourite directors. Today we're going to talk about Shinya Tsukamoto, one of the most underrated directors of the last 35 years, but also one of the best, especially when we consider the budgets he has to work with. He's usually working with not a lot of money, bolstered by the acting jobs he takes. He was in Takashi Miike's Ichi the Killer, for example. And when you consider the directors that squander millions and hundreds of millions of dollars on films, it's pretty disgusting that Tsukamoto isn't well known for his great work with not a lot of money. His films are generally about 90 minutes because of budget reasons. He knows what's important to put in films and what's not. He's a very economical filmmaker. His films have difficult subject matter for some people, controversial subject matter for some people. He pretty much invented a genre all by himself in his early days. You can still see his influence now, even though just like everything else, he probably wouldn't get credit for it. So we'll start with Gemini. Third Window have done a great job in releasing quite a lot of his films. This is one of his best. His first period picture, strangely enough, about twins, atmospheric, rather disturbing. A nice little cameo by Masato Tadanobu, who we'll get to later. Yeah, but Gemini is quite wonderful. Next is a perfect example of how great he is with small budgets. This is a remaking of Kon Ichikawa's Fires in the Plain. This is 87 minutes. I'm sure if other directors had this, it would be like over 2 hours long, but Tsukamoto doesn't need 2 hours. This is wonderful. It comes with a 1 hour long making of, and this was very much a labour of love, and it took him rather a lot of years to get this off the ground, and it's just a wonderful, obviously anti-war film about this troop that's pretty much lost in the jungles. Again, you wouldn't really tell, it's a micro budget. Next is Bullet Valley. Again, the whole gun culture, power of the gun. Again, quite a lot of these Third Window releases come with commentaries from people like Tom Mes. This one doesn't. And then one of his earlier films that perhaps doesn't quite work but still a lot of fun, Hiroko the Goblin. This was one of his first. It still has its moments, but it's perhaps not as successful as some of his greater work. And this does have a commentary by Tom Mes. There's also a couple of interviews with Tsukamoto, who, as you would expect, is a thoroughly nice man. As most directors of extreme cinema, if you want to call it that, are. From 2011, 2012, Kotoko, one of the best films about mental health, but again, some people will find it upsetting. That's kind of the point. Again, that's got an interview with Tsukamoto as well. I'd highly recommend Kotoko. I'd highly recommend all these films. And then his latest film, which I think is probably my film of 2023, not that I watch a lot of films on the year they come out, but Shadow of Fire. I did a video of these two releases by Third Window of Shadow of Fire and another film that we'll get to. Yeah, this is the immediate post World War II. Again, small budget, but you wouldn't think it. And it kind of floats between characters. You think one person will be the main character, then another person will be the main character, but it's just glides its way through people's lives. Brutal as you'd expect, moving, and altogether wonderful. Again, this is a Tom May's audio commentary, Robert Edwards video essay, and it's a Tsukamoto and Kota Ishii talk event. Yeah, highly recommend Shadow of Fire. I would also highly recommend A Snake of June. Again, some people will find this difficult, as there is sexual violence in it. But again, the things that Tsukamoto discuss, strong stuff. And then probably his most famous film, even though it was quite a long time ago, Tetsuo, Iron Man, and Body Hammer. Still haven't seen Tetsuo 3. This gives you both films, both just on the one disc, but they're both relatively short. And again, he kind of invented this genre that we still see today in Japanese cinema. And then this lovely set, again by Third Window, gives you Killing, which is his feature, and The Adventure of Denko Kozu and Haze, which are both shorts. And there's the man himself who stars in Killing and in Haze. Yeah, there's got 3 commentaries by Tom May's. Yeah, Killing is another great film by Tsukamoto. And then we've got probably my favourite Tsukamoto, one of my favourite films of all time, Vital, which again finally got this Region B release from Third Window. This is spectacular. As I said, this is Asano Tadanobu. As a college student who gets in a car accident, can't remember much, but he's in a medical course where they chop up a cadaver, and the cadaver is his girlfriend who died in the car accident. It's about grief, the body, but being Tsukamoto, it could have been exploitative, it could have been a lot gorier, but it's actually a lot classier than it sounds. It's actually quite profound, and absolutely beautiful and important. I also have the Tartan DVD that I've had for years because I just refused to get rid of it because it is one of my favourite films, and for years it wasn't available on Blu-ray. So I've always kept the Tartan DVD, for sentimental reasons, because it's just such a heartwarming tale. And then finally, the Arrow US. You can't teach those kind of instincts. The Arrow US box set of Tsukamoto. It's the second pressing, so there's no booklet. But this just gives you the films. So again, you get Tetsuo 1 and 2, again with different artwork. There are some different extras. That's just a card for Sailor Suit Machine Girl. You get Tokyo Fist and Bullet Ballet, Gotoko and Killing, and at the time, which was the reason I got it, or one of the reasons I got it, this was the only Blu-ray edition of Vital. It was a Region A, so these are all Region A's, but this was the reason I got the box set, because at that point obviously the Third Window Region B hadn't come out. Yeah, and this also has Snake of June, so all of these boxes have the reversible artwork of either film. But obviously I'm going to have the Vito, because it is a Vito film. So as I said, this is the second pressing of the box set, which doesn't have the booklet. But I was just so ecstatic to get this because of Vito. Yeah, and that's my Tsukamoto collection. Again, should be discussed more. And you could easily make the argument it's between him and Kitano, as far as being the greatest Japanese director in the last 35 years. I know some people might say Korida or Sion Sono or other people, but for me it's probably between Kitano and Tsukamoto, and it'll be different on whichever day it is. So that's my Tsukamoto, so to speak. Please let me know how much Tsukamoto you have and what's your favourite. And if you're not familiar with Tsukamoto, I suggest you go to Third Window or Terracotta or anywhere where you buy your physical media and pick up some Tsukamoto, because you're in for a treat. So thanks so much for watching. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.